So I would like to now ask, if we could, hear from Penpa Se Ring, such time as he may consume.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman Smith, Chairman Merkley, members of the distinguished guests. Thank you very much for inviting me for this hearing. And I'm very much encouraged by the presence of Special Coordinator for Tibet, Undersecretary Azra Zeya, who has been very diligently and wholeheartedly fulfilling her responsibilities as a Special Coordinator for Tibet. And I'm also very happy to be present here alongside a person who continues to play a very significant role in keeping the hopes of the Tibetan people alive, and someone whom I hold very dear, Mr. Richard Gere, Chairman of the International Campaign for Tibet. You have also invited two prominent Tibetans, Ladrin Tethong and Tenzin Dorji of the Tibet Action Institute, as you mentioned before. Both are very competent in their leadership, and they are now known for their research on challenges confronting Tibetans inside Tibet, including the colonial-style boarding schools. I'm sure with them speaking in detail on some of the specific issues, I request the chairs to consider my written submission as part of the testimony, which covers almost the events over the last 1 year. And as the democratic elected leader of the Tibetan people, the Central Tibetan Administration, of which I'm the Sikyong, is fully committed to following the middle way policy, the way forward shown by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and adopted by the Tibetan Parliament in exile. This policy is aimed at finding a non-violent, mutually beneficial, negotiated and lasting solution to the Sino-Tibet conflict that can set an example to this violence-ridden world. Resolution to the Sino-Tibet conflict can have profound geopolitical implications for a more peaceful and secure region and the world. The absence of traction on dialogue since 2010 sounds ominous, but we remain positive about finding a peaceful solution to the Sino-Tibet conflict that avoids extreme polarities. The sincerity of the People's Republic of China's leadership manifests in the policies and programs being implemented in Tibet as we speak. In the last few years, evidence emerging out of Tibet in the form of reports by the UN Independent Institute, the independent institutes and scholarly research, the Chinese government's one nation, one language, one culture, and one religion is aimed at forced assimilation and the erasure of Tibetan national identity and other minority nationalities. Unsurprisingly, the international watchdog Freedom House lists Tibet as one of the most least free country in the world alongside Syria and South Sudan. We often get asked as to why we don't hear about Tibet anymore. PRC's Orwellian gridlock system, use of all means of artificial intelligence, as the chairs mentioned, to surveil people, control the flow of information and lockdown of Tibet to the outside world. Even those in leadership roles in education, religion, culture, and environment are being arbitrarily arrested, or they just disappear. One's actions are linked to welfare of one's near and dear ones. 157 Tibetans were known to have self-immolated since 2009, hoping against hope that the PRC government would pay some attention to their plight and hoping against hope that the international community would come to their rescue, but to no avail. The Chinese government focuses too much on development and fails to understand the real aspirations of the Tibetan people. Tibetan language, religion, and culture are the bedrock of Tibetan identity. Compassion and nonviolence, which form the foundation of our culture, will undoubtedly promote peace and harmony in the world. However, these are facing unprecedented threat of eradication. The atheist Chinese government is trying to fully control the process and authority of recognizing the reincarnation of Trukus, or living Buddhas as they say, that is unique to Tibetan Buddhism, besides interference in the study of Buddhist philosophy and control on their movement. To speed up assimilation, large-scale forced relocation of Tibetans from their traditional homeland to Chinese territories and within Tibet, mass transfers of Tibetan youth to China are forcing all these Tibetans to be moved to other areas that are not of their traditional culture. As part of the 50 years China's Western Development Program started at the beginning of this millennium, unscrupulous use of natural resources and reckless construction of dams, railways and road network, airports and other infrastructure in Tibet threatens irreversible damage to Tibet's fragile environment. Tibet is known as Asia's water tower and the third pole because of the amount of glaciers and permafrost that feeds all the major rivers of Asia. Therefore, it concerns not only Tibet and the Tibetan people, but has serious implications on the food, economic, and water security of a population of about 2 billion people downstream. If PRC is not made to reverse, to change its current policies, Tibet and Tibetans will definitely die a slow death. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I would like to express appreciation for organizing this very important hearing. These hearings are a boost to the indomitable spirit of the Tibetans inside Tibet and source of inspiration for the Tibetans in exile to continue with our just struggle. I wish to reiterate our gratitude to the U.S. Congress for making necessary changes to the Tibet Policy Act. The continuous support from the Congress, government, and people of the United States will enable the resolution of the Sino-Tibet conflict through the middle way policy, which will bring peace to Tibet and beyond. I fervently hope that the bill on promoting a resolution to this Tibet-China Conflict Act introduced in both houses of the U.S. Congress will be made into law. Thank you very much for this opportunity again.
I want to thank the Sikyon for his very powerful testimony. And the reason why why we've called this hearing is to begin to act as a pivot. Yes, there's focus on Hong Kong, there's focus on Taiwan, there's focus on what's happening to the Uyghurs and the genocide against the Muslims living there. But we cannot take our eyes off the ongoing genocide being committed against the Tibetan people. And the promoting a resolution to the Tibet-China Conflict Act, authored by my good friend to my left and by the ranking member, former chairman of the commission, who couldn't make it here today. He had other important things to be at. That becomes the pivot, that we re-engage. And so this testimony and this hearing, and again, that legislation is critical to engaging as never before on Tibet.